some of you may imagine and be correct that I'm here at the I've been invited to speak as a skeptic. And I think it's a testament to the openness and the nuance and the rigor that has gone into this piece of work, that is viewed as important. It does mean that I'm not going to spend much of my time saying the things that I think are kind of generally broadly balanced. I'm going to live up to the billing and say where I think we have some problems yet to deal with. But in terms of whether or not this report is, and the guidance and the principles can take us in the right direction, you may or may not know that I'm Welsh. I know you can't hear it from my voice, but I grew up in a very tourist-drenched area of South Wales. So we got used to the fact of having tourists continually coming up and asking us for directions to the particular beach that we hadn't signposted deliberately. And it's one of my favourite Welshisms. We have a tradition, particularly as children, whenever anyone said, could you tell me how to get to Rossley Beach, we say, oh, well, you don't want to start from here. I don't want to start from here. You see, so I don't think we can get to the ethical problems presented to us as people, as a society, in our relationship with the state and with data, by starting with the question whether it should be done in children's social work. So I don't hold you accountable for failing to meet the standards that I want. I want a Warnock Commission. I think we as a population, as a world, we face incredible potential advantages and incredible potential dangers, and that needs to be addressed first as a whole, and then we could consider how within that kind of framework it may or may not have any relevance to children's social work. So that's my mea culpa to our friends who've put so much great work into it. But I read through the whole of the full report, which I would recommend to everyone. I said earlier, I don't think the executive report, the executive summary does justice to the sheer volume and nuance and sensitivity with which issues have been dealt with in the big report. But I ended up feeling like it was still floating in an abstract space. And the thing I was missing was, is it legal? You know, there is a law. There are laws of the land at the moment. The human rights are not a discourse that live in an ethics handbook. It is the law of the land. The Human Rights Act is enforceable in court. And Article 8 of the Human Rights Act protects my privacy, my family life, my home and my correspondence, and it's been worked through for nearly 50 years in European legislation. I could take you to court if you misuse my data in breach of Article 8. And if you discriminate against me in any of my rights under the Human Rights Act, you have broken, you will be found guilty in court of a breach of my human rights. This applies to every public body right now. So for me, however valuable the list of how-to, what you should do while you're maybe doing it, it misses the first question, is it legal? And if it is legal, if it's warranted to breach my rights by doing these things, you have to ensure that it is provided for by law. You have to have a law that says it's okay in this case. It has to be necessary. You have to have considered any other way of achieving the objective first. And it has to be proportionate. You cannot expect an entire population of people to surrender their data, their protection, their privacy rights for the benefit of maybe helping two people that wouldn't have been helped before. It's not going to fly in a court, and it's not referred to in how we're balancing up the difference between an individual right and our freedoms and the power of a state that gets our data and wants to do clever things with it. I wish we could see some reference to other ethics codes that were already established. So I'd love to see the Nolan Principles applied to data science. They are the Nolan Principles for Ethics in Public Life: selflessness, integrity, objectivity, openness, accountability, and leadership. I think they should be used in commissioning and procurement of anyone who might be involved with anything to do with councils. But I think they are meant to apply to social workers today. They are meant to apply to all people working on behalf of the state. How about the Hippocratic Oath? First, do no harm. What would that mean if we put that ahead of the question of how you go ahead if you aren't doing any harm? And let's think about biomedical ethics and what they did by having the Warnock Commission, because they created a very clear single pathway for getting approval. And if there isn't much value in an ethics framework that doesn't tell you what you can't do. If it doesn't protect me from anything and tell you that idea you've had, it's not okay. You cannot proceed. Like human cloning, we need to be protected from bad ideas by whatever comes out of this. So who is meant to sign off on it at a local council? Is it the scrutiny committee? Is it the legal department? Where should it go nationally? So I want more. I want more detail, and I want more protection of my rights. I don't think it got to the question of what the consequences, unintended or otherwise, could be on the nature of the relationship between citizen and state. We all in this room live in a council. We have voting rights, which means that they know where we live and where they have our data. Are we happy to say that data then belongs to them for any purpose that they think is probably helpful? If I can withdraw my consent for that, and I'm asked continually, do you want to be part of this? If you don't, you can withdraw, but what are the consequences of that? Do I miss out on any of my other rights? Do I not receive services for my disabled child if I refuse to take part in the data set that wants to predict what will happen to them next? Lastly, I think we need some temporal humility. I don't know, I mean, it is reliable throughout time that human beings seem to be fascinated with the idea of predicting the future. We've only got to a point where we're relatively reliable about the weather recently, but we definitely, I don't know where we get off thinking that we can predict what happens in human existence tomorrow, in my family tomorrow, let alone in a child's life tomorrow. But social work is premised on saying however bad things are today, they can be better tomorrow if we try. And if we change that proposition and say, whatever is going on today, I already know where it's going to go from here, I think the essence of what social work should be and should hope for could be lost. So I want an ethics framework that tells me what we can't do, and I won't feel safe until we do.